Here, no one cares what your sins were. In this place, guilt is a privilege. Beneath the rotting stones of Avignon's prison, where the cries of the damned echo like hymns, I, the witness, remain the last man standing among the thousands who have bled, screamed, and vanished into the darkness. I was given a choice: observe, write, and survive. I thought I would be transcribing prayers. Instead, I recorded the snap of tendons, the hiss of burning flesh, and the gnawing sound of rats burrowing through a boy's gut. It begins now. Torture 1, the rack. Avignon Prison, 1324. Cell 9. They dragged him in at dawn, not like a man, but like something that had already begun to rot. His armor had long been stripped. His boots were gone. Only a tattered red cloak marked him for what he once was, a knight of the Templar Order. They called him Sir Aldrich of Rouen. But today, he was nothing. Today, he was meat for the rack. You will observe. You will record. And you will not look away. Those were the only instructions I was given. I, the witness. The last one. The quiet one. The man they feed, not out of mercy, but because scribes are harder to replace than martyrs. The cell was damp. Moss dripped from the ceiling like drool from a lunatic's mouth. And in the center stood it, a wooden frame, stretched longer than a bed, lined with ropes, pulleys, and steel. They say the rack was born not from cruelty, but from genius. A carpenter's work twisted into a tool of obedience. But when I saw Sir Aldrich laid out on it, wrists bound at one end, ankles at the other, I did not see obedience. I saw history being ripped apart, sinew by sinew. The first turn. The Inquisitor arrived cloaked in black. His voice was thin and dry, like parchment set on fire. Sir Aldrich of Rouen. You are charged with heresy, treason, and the murder of Archbishop Furin. Do you deny this? Aldrich's jaw, half-cracked, barely moved. I deny nothing. I regret nothing. The Inquisitor nodded. Begin. The torturer turned the first wheel. It was almost gentle, a tightening of ropes, a subtle pull at the arms and legs. But Aldrich arched his back instantly. His spine, stiff with age and pride, had not bent in years. The pull was silent. But the cracking wasn't. Pop. CRK. Snap. It was his left shoulder. I saw it shift, a dislocation, swift and violent, like a wolf tearing flesh from bone. His mouth opened. But he didn't scream. I wrote. First dislocation. No confession. Silent. 2, blood memory. I remembered Aldrich. Not from books, nor whispers, from battle. 7 years ago, during the siege of Béziers, a knight pulled me from a pile of corpses. His sword had shattered, but he fought with a rock, blood covering his face like war paint. I never saw his face. But the red cloak? That I remembered. That was Aldrich. He saved me. And now, I watched his bones snap like branches under frost. Was this justice? Retribution? Or simply entropy, the gods losing patience with the world they'd made? 3, the second turn. The torturer was slow. He had done this 1,000 times. He hummed a lullaby as he cranked the wheel again. Aldrich's neck jerked. His knees began to rise, the body's final defiance against being torn apart. Where's the letter? The Inquisitor asked. Aldrich laughed. I swallowed it, before you killed my horse. That laughter died with the second turn. RRRKKK. Crack. His right elbow burst outward. The flesh split. A tendon rolled back like a snapped bowstring. Blood splattered the wooden boards. Still, he did not scream. I wrote. Elbow rupture. Vascular breach. No vocalization. The torturer paused, almost impressed. He'll scream on the third, he whispered to me. I nodded. But I wasn't sure. 4, brotherhood. Between turns, Aldrich turned his head toward me. His eyes were still lucid. Do you remember Béziers? My pen froze. You pulled me from the pyre, I whispered. He grinned. You owe me nothing. But write it true. Write what? That I was not afraid. The third turn. They didn't warn him. The crank turned fast. Both knees shattered, twin echoes, like would split in a frozen forest. His pelvis cracked down the center. His arms stretched nearly an inch longer. This time, he screamed. It wasn't a sound of surrender. It was a war cry. One last howl from a dying lion. The scream rolled through the dungeon like thunder in a sealed tomb. The Inquisitor stepped forward. Where's the heretic child? Aldrich spat blood. Gone. Far from this place. Far from men like you. I wrote. Scream recorded. Confession refused. Protective instinct intact. 6. Mercy and madness. By nightfall, Aldrich's body was no longer a body. His limbs looked like rope, stretched, torn, soaked in red. But he still breathed. The Inquisitor frowned. Too strong. He motioned. The torturer drew a dagger and approached the knight's side. Sever the arm, he said. I stood up. He's confessed nothing. That is not procedure. The Inquisitor looked at me. He screamed. That's all the church requires. I should have stayed silent. But I didn't. He saved my life once. And now he saves your soul. Record it. I did. 7. Last words. As they cut his arm off, Aldrich turned to me one last time. The child is not who you think. Then who? I asked. But he never answered. He died before dawn. Not from the rack. But from hope. Hope that someone would remember him as more than a traitor. I closed the journal. Entry 1 complete. Subject, Sir Aldrich of Rouen. Method, the rack. Outcome, death by trauma. Confession, none. Resistance level, absolute. The guards returned at noon. Prepare for the next, one said. What's next? I asked. He smiled. The Iron Maiden. And just like that, another soul was led to iron death. Avignon Prison, 1324. Cell 10. They brought her in under torchlight. Her veil was torn. Her ankles were shackled. But she walked upright, head held high like a queen sent to the gallows. Her name was Isabeau de Marne, once the wife of a baron, now accused of poisoning him with nightshade and whispering curses to the dead. The Inquisitor introduced her to me like one would a banquet guest. This is the widow of Marne. She weeps for no one. Let's see if steel can make her sing. I looked at her wrists, raw, torn, but she didn't flinch. Her mouth twitched into something like a smile. A dangerous one. The maiden awaits. The Iron Maiden stood tall in the center of the chamber, over 7 feet of rusted steel shaped like a woman's form, its doors slightly ajar. I had seen it only once before. But now, up close, I noticed the spikes, hundreds of them, lining the inner walls like teeth in the belly of a monster. Each spike was carefully placed to avoid vital organs. It was not designed to kill quickly. It was designed to embrace. To love you slowly. To kiss your ribs. To whisper into your lungs. The Inquisitor nodded to the guards. They began to strip Isabeau. Wait, she said, allow me. And with trembling hands, she undressed herself, layer by layer, until only a shift remained, stained with blood and ash. She stepped forward on her own. Do you know who I am? She asked me. Yes, I said. And I will remember. 2. The first closing. The torturer placed her inside. The doors did not slam. They creaked, slow, intimate, like a lover returning to bed after a long absence. Clank. The scream came not from her, but from the metal, as if the Iron Maiden had just fed and moaned with satisfaction. A trickle of blood ran from the bottom slit of the doors. Inside, I could hear her breathing. Then, laughter. Is that all? She hissed. Not yet, said the Inquisitor. He pulled the lever. Inside, the spikes shifted, tightening. 3. The confession that wasn't. Hours passed. The Inquisitor pressed his ear against the door. She's murmuring. Record it. I leaned in close. Her voice floated through the steel, broken, hushed, but lucid. They came to me in cloaks. In the dark. Drunk with wine and greed. Who? Asked the Inquisitor. The priests. Your holy men. All of them touched me, long before I touched poison. Names, he roared. You already know them, she whispered. They baptize your sons. I wrote. Subject speaks not of guilt, but of vengeance. Blames clergy. Identifies no names. 4. The flesh between spikes. When they opened the maiden again, blood sprayed outward like breath escaping a corpse. She was still alive. Barely. The spikes had pierced her shoulders, thighs, cheeks, but missed her heart. The torturer frowned. She should be dead. No, said the Inquisitor. She's waiting. They pried her out with hooks. Her skin tore against the spikes like old parchment. Still, she stood. Barely. Put her back, the Inquisitor said. But she spoke before they could touch her. Do you know what he did to my daughter? She asked. No one answered. He used her body. My husband. Your blessed Baron. She turned to me. Write that. Let it be known. I didn't kill a man. I freed a monster from his own flesh. I wrote. Claim murder of Baron Marn was retribution. Motivation to protect child. Emotional state defiant, unrepentant. V. The final embrace. They put her back in. This time, she didn't resist. She leaned against the steel wall like it was her confessor, and whispered one final thing I couldn't hear. The maiden closed. Not gently. Slam. A shriek pierced the dungeon. Not of fear, but something deeper. Rapture. When they opened it again, she was dead. But smiling. Blood soaked the floor. Her lips were torn, but curved upward. In her clenched hand, a fragment of cloth. Child-sized. Stained with old wine. 6. The witness breaks. That night, I vomited in the corridor. My hand shook as I wrote the last line of the report. Entry 2 complete. Subject, Isabeau de Marne. Method, Iron Maiden. Outcome, death by internal laceration. Confession, partial. Subtext, justified rage. The Inquisitor took the page. You're getting better, he said. No, I whispered. Just number. You'll live longer than any of them. At what cost? He smiled. Your soul, of course. But it's already gone. 7. The next name. The next morning, I found a note slipped beneath my cell door. One word. Sister. And below it, the tool for tomorrow's testimony. The pair. Avignon Prison, 1324. Cell 11. They brought her in barefoot. Her habit torn, stained with soot and sweat. A thin silver cross dangled around her neck, cracked in half. They called her Sister Celeste. But the guards whispered a different name. The Witch of Alls. Her crime? Whispers in the chapel. Missing candles. And the ultimate sin, kissing another woman under the eyes of God. She kissed no woman, the Inquisitor sneered. She kissed Satan in disguise. I looked into her face and saw no witch. Only fire. I, the object. They placed the device on the table before us. It was small, almost delicate. For metal petals, fused into a closed bud. Attached to a screw handle. The pair of anguish. It could be inserted into the mouth. The rectum. The womb. And with a turn. Blossom. Spreading, tearing, grinding flesh from within. Use the mouth, the Inquisitor said. She blasphemed with it. Let it bear her punishment. I tried to write that down. My hand wouldn't move. She looked at me. Write truth, not orders. 2. The first turn. The torturer held her jaw open. She did not resist. Do you confess to unnatural acts with Sister Genevieve? No, she said softly. But I loved her. The Inquisitor laughed. Love. The oldest lie. They inserted the device. She gagged, not in pain, but memory. She was kind to me, she whispered through blood. She braided my hair when I cried in the pews. The torturer turned the screw once. Click. Her jaw trembled. A faint pop as the hinge strained. Blood trickled from her lips, just a line. I wrote. First expansion. Minimal resistance. Subject emotionally anchored to another nun. 3. The second turn. Click. The petals opened wider. Her cheeks began to swell. Her tongue bruised purple. But she did not scream. Where's Genevieve now? The Inquisitor asked. Celeste looked straight at me, tears in her eyes, blood on her chin. Buried under the altar. She took her own life the day after they found us. What did you whisper to her that night? I said, God lied to us. The Inquisitor struck her. He speaks through men like me. She smiled through broken teeth. Then God is cruel. 4. A song in shards. They turned the screw again. This time, CRRK. Her jawbone cracked. One molar exploded outward like shrapnel. Her gums tore. But then, she began to sing. A hymn. Warped, garbled, but unmistakable. Ave Maria, Grazia Plena. It echoed down the corridor like the song of a dying bird. The Inquisitor backed away. She's mocking the Virgin. But I knew. She wasn't mocking. She was mourning. The final turn. The fourth turn shattered everything. Her lower jaw dislocated. The corners of her mouth tore up to her cheeks. Her eyes rolled back, but she kept singing a gurgling, blasphemous aria of grief and grace. The torturer looked pale. She should have passed out. She's beyond flesh now, I whispered. 6. The wrath of Sister Celeste. She collapsed. But as they removed the device, she choked out one final sentence. Tell Genevieve. I waited for her in the dark. And then she stopped breathing. The Inquisitor leaned close. She died with her sin in her throat. I shook my head. No. She died with love in it. I wrote. Entry 3 complete. Subject, Sister Celeste. Method, pair of anguish. Confession, denied. Soul intact. 7. Something new. That night, I stared at the wall. Her song still echoed in my skull. They were no longer just victims to me. They were pieces of me. I looked at the parchment. And for the first time, I wrote something they did not ask for. I knew a Genevieve once. The next morning, a new paper was slid beneath my door. Boy. Age 12. Crime, blasphemy. Beside it, a drawing. A steel pyramid. Avignon Prison, 1324. Cell 12. They brought him in shivering. His wrists were bound in rusted chains. His hair was matted. His clothes, no more than rags, hung off a frame too thin for a boy his age. 12, the guard said, maybe 13. Caught mocking the Massachusetts. Name? I asked. Does it matter? The Inquisitor snapped. They're all Judas in the end. But when I looked into the boy's eyes, I froze. I'd seen those eyes before. Not yesterday. Not last week. But in my dreams. The device. In the middle of the stone chamber stood the cradle. A tall wooden pyramid with a steel tip, sharpened, stained, towering. Beneath it, for ropes attached to pulleys, ready to hoist the victim. The Judas cradle forces the condemned to sit atop the point, lowered by their own body weight, driven down inch by inch, flesh parting, organs displaced, spine compressed. It was not a method of confession. It was a slow descent into hell. 2. The child in the cradle. He didn't resist. He stood barefoot beside the pyramid and whispered, "Will it hurt?" The torturer paused. For the first time, he looked unsure. "A little," I lied. "Good," the boy whispered. "I want to feel something real." They stripped him, exposing a body already beaten. Bruises like ink stains. Burn marks on the ribs. "Who taught you to mock the Mass?" the Inquisitor asked. "My mother." She said God speaks kinder in silence. "She's dead?" They made her kneel in the river until she stopped breathing. No one spoke. Then the boy stepped forward and sat on the point. Without being forced. 3. The first descent. The pulleys turned. Slowly. Rhythmically. His body dropped by inches. The point pressed into him. A sharp gasp. Then silence. "Speak," the Inquisitor demanded. "Renounce your mother's heresy." "She told me stories when I couldn't sleep," the boy muttered. "About stars that cry when children are hurt." "Stars don't cry." "Then neither will I." Blood began to drip down the pyramid. Thick. Red. Innocent. I wrote. Initial descent. Subject calm. No confession. Pain threshold unnaturally high. 4. The break. 2 hours. That's how long he sat, body slowly splitting. His lips trembled. His spine began to curve. But he didn't scream. He stared at me. Through me. And whispered, "Are you the man from my dreams?" I dropped the quill. "What?" "You wear black in the dark. You write while others die." My hands shook. "What's your name?" I asked. "I don't have one anymore." "No, please, tell me." They said names are for the saved. He bled down his thighs. The point was deep now. Breathing became shallow. But he kept watching me, unblinking. V. The fall of the witness. "Stop this," I told the Inquisitor. "He's mocking the church. He's just a boy. So was Judas. So were you." I turned to the torturer. "If you drop him another inch, I'll write your name into this book. Forever." He stopped. But the Inquisitor gave the order. "Release the ropes." The boy dropped fully. Thud. His body twitched once. Then went still. He never screamed. 6. What he left behind. They pulled him off the pyramid and tossed the corpse aside like waste. But in his hand, he clutched a tiny wooden token. A carved figure. A man sitting and writing. Me. It was me. I wrote. Entry 4 complete. Subject, unnamed boy. Method, Judas cradle. Confession, none. Psychological rupture, witness. 7. Undoing. That night, I tore out every page I'd written. I tried to burn them, but the guards stopped me. "The church owns your words. Then let it own your shame." They laughed. But I did not. Because I finally understood. The victims weren't just strangers. They were memories. Fragments. Reflections of me. 8. The next tool. In the morning, the guards smiled wide. Time for something theatrical. They wheeled it in. Brass. Hollow. Shaped like a bull. "Who's next?" I asked. "A heretic king. One who would not kneel." "What's the method?" "The Brazen Bull. Avignon Prison, 1324. Execution chamber." They wheeled it in like a king arriving at court. The Brazen Bull, a monstrous sculpture of brass, life-sized, gleaming with polish and bloodstains. Its sides were cold. Hollow. Bolted shut. Inside, a man could fit, barely. Once sealed in, a fire would be lit underneath. The metal would heat. The man would roast. The screams? They'd echo through pipes, distorted into the sound of a bull's bellow. A scream turned to spectacle. Pain as entertainment. They called it justice. I, the prisoner king. They brought him in wearing chains forged too thick for one man. His skin was scorched. His beard was matted with soot. But his posture? Regal. He was known as Malric of the Flame, leader of a pagan rebellion, worshipper of the old gods, the fire gods. The Inquisitor smiled. How poetic, he said, that he'll burn in the very element he worships. But Malric didn't resist. If your god lives in heaven, then light your fire, he said. Mine watches from the coals. 2. The preparation. The bull's hatch was opened. I smelled old death inside, cooked flesh, fat, burned hair baked into the walls. Malric stared at it. Is this all that's left of your truth? Brass and fire? The Inquisitor stepped forward. Recant your heresy. Kneel before the Holy Trinity. Malric spat at his feet. I kneel to no Trinity. I am one. Blasphemy. I am the Father of the Forgotten, the Flame of Resistance, and the Son of Vengeance. Your God is brittle. Mine is burning. I wrote. Subject remains unbroken. No signs of repentance. Defiant. 3. The fire begins. They forced him inside. He ducked low. Curled into a fetal position. The hatch slammed shut. Clang. Then came the torchlight. Bundles of dry wood, soaked in oil, shoved beneath the bull's belly. They lit it. The chamber filled with smoke, heat, and tension. The metal hissed. Inside, Malric remained silent. At first. 4. The first bellow. Then, it began. A sound so guttural, so inhuman, that my stomach twisted. Not a man's cry, a beast's howl. The bull roared. Its mouth, designed like a horn, funneled Malric's screams outward in warped, booming moans. It echoed through the stone halls. The bull speaks, the torturer grinned. No, I whispered, it weeps. The voice from the flames. But within those cries, there was meaning. I leaned close to the bull's snout. The heat blistered my face. What is he saying? I murmured. A chant, the Inquisitor replied. He's calling his false god. But I heard something else. Through the pitch-shifted wails were names. Mine. My brother's. My father's. Names of people buried, forgotten, burned away by wars and inquisitions. You remember them, Malric screamed. So you're not clean. You're not saved. Stop. I cried out. You're not a witness. You're a vessel. 6. The bull shakes. The metal began to glow red. The beast's belly heaved with steam. Bones popped. Flesh sizzled. The smell, sweet and metallic, filled my throat like poison. Malric's screams deepened, then softened, then faded. Silence. Except for the low groan of boiling fat. The Inquisitor turned to me. Write it down. I couldn't. I was sobbing. Write it. I wrote. Entry 5 complete. Subject, Malric of the Flame. Method, Brazen Bull. Outcome, death by incineration. Final words, names of the dead. Psychological impact, severe. 7. The aftermath. They opened the hatch. Steam hissed out. A blackened form lay curled inside, more ash than man. His skull had split from the heat, but his teeth still smiled. They left the corpse inside to cool. That night, I didn't sleep. I dreamed of a bull made of bone, chasing me through fire, whispering names in my ears. And when I woke, there was a rat on my chest. Not dead. Not sick. Watching. Waiting. 8. The final device. A note arrived beneath my door. This time, no name. Just one line. The smallest mouth chews deepest. And beside it, a wooden bucket, blood-stained. And a crude rat-shaped sketch. The last torture. The end of the line. Tomorrow, the rat. Avignon Prison, 1324. Chamber below the cells. No torches. No prayers. No ceremony. This wasn't a place of execution. It was a nest. The walls were carved with scratch marks. The stone floors caked in waste. The stench was unbearable, rot, blood, and something darker. Fear that never dried. A bucket waited in the center. Inside, 3 rats, starved, furious, clawing at each other. A brazier sat nearby, glowing red. You've written for knights, witches, heretics, and kings, the Inquisitor said. Now write for a thief. I, the boy in the bite. They dragged him in with bare feet and bloated eyes. He was no more than 10. Covered in sores. Lips cracked. A dried crust of blood around his mouth. He stole a priest's bread, the guard said. And spat on the altar. I said nothing. Because my voice had already broken. He looked at me. And smiled. 2. The method. The procedure was simple. Tie the boy down. Place the rat-filled bucket on his bare abdomen. Seal it tight. Then press hot coals against the other end. The rats, in terror, will dig their way through flesh to escape the heat. A child devoured from within. Alive. Any confession? I asked. What does it matter? The Inquisitor shrugged. He's not a heretic. No. But he's a reminder. Of what? That sin starts young. They strapped the boy down. Are you scared? I whispered. He blinked. No. I already live with them in my belly. 3. The heat begins. The brazier was pressed against the bucket. The rats screeched. Metal turned red. The bucket shifted. Then shook. The boy clenched his teeth, eyes wide open. You can scream, I said. That's what they want, he whispered. But I'm already hollow. They're just going home. Then, a snap. The first bite. He arched. Blood gushed from his mouth. The bucket rattled harder. He didn't scream. Only gasped. It's cold. Why is it so cold? I wrote. Entry 6. Subject, unnamed child. Method, rat torture. Resistance, inhuman. Dignity intact. 4. The child who knew me. Midway through, he looked at me again. Not in pain. In recognition. You were in my house once. No, I stammered. I've never met you. Yes. You were the one who didn't speak. You watched. And wrote. While they took my sister. Stop, I whispered. Please. You said nothing. I couldn't. You still say nothing. I'm writing. Exactly. The rats squealed louder. They're done, the boy said. And then, with one last breath. Now they'll come for you. The breaking. They removed the bucket. Inside, the rats were soaked in red. One still gnawed on something pink. The boy's stomach was open. But his face? Peaceful. Like sleep. Like release. I wrote. Final entry complete. Subject, unnamed boy. Outcome, death by internal consumption. Witness condition, unstable. Refuses further transcription. 6. The reckoning. That night, I was locked alone in my cell. But it didn't feel empty. I heard breathing. Chewing. Skittering beneath the bed. Then. Squeak. 1 rat. Then 2. Then 10. They crawled from the walls, from cracks, from inside the ink pot. They stared at me. Not hungrily. Knowingly. I remember you, one of them whispered. 7. The truth. The door opened. The Inquisitor entered with a final sheet of parchment. We're done, he said. 6 tortures. 6 truths. The ledger is complete. No, I said. You've written it all. Not all. Because now I knew. Every victim was me. The knight I failed to save. The widow I judged. The nun I condemned. The child I ignored. The rebel I envied. The boy I forgot. I was not the witness. I was the cause. 8. The end of ink. I dipped my pen into blood. Not from a wound. From memory. And I wrote. This is my confession. May the rats feast on what's left of me. Drop of blood epilogue, years later. When they broke open cell 12, they found no body. Only parchment. Ink. A rat skull, clean and white. And a single sentence carved into the stone wall. Hell is repetition. And I've written it all.